All right, welcome. So you're ready to take your Spanish from just fluent to, well, truly nuanced, right? You are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to leap way beyond the basics of doubt and dive deep into the really sophisticated ways to talk about probability and certainty. Let's get into it. And this, right here, is really the heart of the matter. The official C1 guidelines, they specifically say you need to nuance your opinions and statements regarding degrees of certainty. You see, getting to that next level in Spanish, it isn't just about learning more words. It's about mastering the art of expressing these subtle shades of meaning. It's the difference between just stating a fact and really conveying how confident you are in that fact. Okay, let's kick things off with a little test, one that trips up even advanced learners all the time. Imagine you see a friend, they've clearly had a super long day. You want to say, he must be tired. What's the first thing that pops into your head? Think about it for a second, because the answer really unlocks a huge concept we're talking about today. And boom, there it is. The answer you're looking for is debe de estar cansado. See that tiny little word, de? It makes all the difference in the world. Without it, if you say debe estar cansado, it kind of sounds like he has an obligation, like it's his duty to be tired. Weird, right? But you add that de, and suddenly you're expressing a probability, a guess. This little distinction, this is your first step into C1 level nuance. So here's our game plan. We'll nail down that difference between obligation and probability. Then we're going to map out the whole spectrum of doubt. After that, we'll see how to use the future tense to guess about the present. Super cool trick. We'll even look at a fascinating old verb tense. And finally, we'll wrap it all up into your C1 certainty toolkit. All right, first up, we are diving straight into this deber dilemma. This one is just a perfect example of the kind of precision you need at the C1 level. So what's the fancy term for all this stuff? It's called epistemic modality. Now that sounds super academic, right? But don't worry, it's just a way of describing how we, as speakers, signal how certain we are about something. Anytime you say probably, maybe, or definitely, you're using epistemic modality. Same? Simple. And if you look at the table, it breaks down really clearly. On one side, you've got deber plus an infinitive. That's for obligation. Think of debes entregar el informe. That means you must turn in the report. It's a command. But on the other side, deber de plus an infinitive, that's for probability, our epistemic modality. Debe de ser un error means it must be a mistake. It's a guess, not an order. Okay, now that we've got that foundation laid, let's move on. We're going to map out the whole range of expressions you can use for doubt. And trust me, each one has its own little personality and its own grammar rules. You know, I find it really helpful to think of this as a certainty spectrum. Imagine a line. On one end, you have things you're almost 100% sure about. And way down on the other end, you have pure guesswork. Where your phrase falls on this line is going to tell you what kind of grammar you need to use. And what's so cool here is how certainty is directly tied to the verb mood, indicative versus subjunctive. Check it out. For higher medium certainty phrases like seguramente or probablemente, you've got a choice. Use the indicative if you're feeling more confident, or the subjunctive for a bit more doubt. But watch what happens when we slide down the scale to puede que. Certainty is lower, so the subjunctive is no longer optional, it's required. Okay, but here's the big one, the classic C1 trip-up. A lo mejor. It just means maybe. So logically, you'd think it would need the subjunctive, right? Nope. It always takes the indicative. It's one of those non-negotiable rules of Spanish. So you'll always hear a lo mejor viene and never ever a lo mejor venga. Seriously, burn this one into your brain. It's a total game changer. All right, next up, we're getting into something that sounds incredibly native, and honestly, it's pretty impressive. We're going to look at how you can take verb tenses you already know, the future and the conditional, and use them to make these really slick guesses. So look at this sentence here. At first glance, it's a little weird. Será, that's the future tense, right? So is this person saying it will be very cheap, but I don't like it? That doesn't really make sense in the present moment, does it? So if you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, why is the future tense talking about right now? You are asking exactly the right question. And this is where we uncover one of the most subtle and advanced bits of Spanish grammar. This, my friends, is what linguists call the future of conjecture. It's this brilliant feature in Spanish where the language basically repurposes the future and conditional tenses to signal probability. It's like a shortcut for saying probably without actually saying the word probably may. And you can see just how powerful this is. If you're guessing about the present, you just use the future tense. Someone asks, ¿Dónde está Juan? You can say, Estará en casa. He's probably at home. Guessing about the past, use the conditional. Tendría 8 años. I was probably 8 years old. And then there's the irony, like in our first example. Saying será muy barato is a slick way to say, yeah, sure, it may be cheap, but I still don't like it. Okay, for our last big topic, we're going to unlock a part of Spanish that, honestly, most learners never even see. Think of it like the secret level of Spanish grammar, the future subjunctive. Okay, let's be super clear about this. You're not going to be using this tense when you're ordering a coffee. It's basically archaic. But if you ever want to read legal documents, classic literature, or get the real meaning of some timeless proverbs, you've got to be able to recognize it. It's a sign of a real, deep appreciation for the language. And here is the absolute classic example. A donde fueres, haz lo que vieres. It's the Spanish way of saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Both of those words, fueres and vieres, are the future subjunctive. Again, you don't need to be able to use them, but being able to spot them, that's C1 level. Wow. Okay, so we've gone all the way from modern-day nuance to a little bit of grammar history. Let's pull this all together into a practical toolkit that you can start using like today. Here it is, your 4-point C1 modality toolkit. 1. Always ask yourself, is it an obligation or a probability? That's your deber versus deber de check. 2. Make a conscious choice about your verb mood, indicative or subjunctive, when you're expressing doubt. 3. Start practicing using the future and conditional to make guesses. And 4. Keep an eye out for that rare but very cool future subjunctive. And really, that's what this is all about. C1 fluency means communicating with precision. It's about showing not just what you're thinking, but how certain you are about it. This is the stuff that makes your Spanish sound truly authentic, truly advanced. All right, now it's your turn. I've got a little challenge for you. Think of something you aren't totally sure about. Maybe what the weather will be like tomorrow or where a friend might be right now. Try to put that uncertainty into a Spanish sentence using one of the tools we've talked about. Go ahead, give it a try. Thanks so much for joining me today.